Welcome everybody to another edition of the Tyler Werner Show, right here on the Facebook page / YouTube channel for the Tyler Werner Show. I guess as usual during this time of the week, the day after breakdown of the Philadelphia Eagles game. Then again, what really do we have to break down in this Eagles game? Other than it was just an absolute whooping of a Philadelphia Eagles team at Lincoln Financial Field. Yet another opportunity for them to take a step forward in the NFC East. This NFC East, it's just been basically sitting on a silver platter for the Philadelphia Eagles pretty much all season long. And because, obviously the Eagles basically being the favorite after the preseason they have and everything. And just, throughout the season, it's just been... And yet, they find themselves in a situation before they even play the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving where the season is on life support. As wide open in some regards as the NFC East is still. It's just like... And they come out after a absolutely pathetic game last week against the Miami Dolphins that they had... They should have put it away early. They come out at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and they stink it up. The Buccaneers, Jameis Winston is showing growth as a quarterback. They got some decent players on offense, certainly. Mike Evans at wide receiver, who, by the way, maybe the Eagles could have made a move up to get in the draft the other year ago. Instead, just basically sitting there and taking Marcus Smith, who hasn't done a thing in this league as a first-round draft pick. But I guess we'll save that for another time here on the Tyler Werner Show. But again, it's the defense has a big breakdown of a game here. All right, that's number one. The defense has, for the most part this season, has been solid. This game, not so much. Obviously, it doesn't help when Doug Martin is running rampant on this Philadelphia Eagles defense. That one long run early in the game. I think it was Nolan Carroll that was chasing him. It's just like this team didn't know what to do with themselves on defense or offense this game. This whole culture thing and being prepared and just whatever. Everything that comes with this Chip Kelly regime right now, it's just like everything is open to be under fire at this point after that kind of game. Chip Kelly can say what he wants. He's been saying throughout the season, and it just blows my mind how he's continued to fall back on the idea that a lot of our games we've been losing by only field goals and whatnot. And we've been close games and everything. It's like, well, what makes teams great and what makes coaches great is that when games come down to those single plays that Chip Kelly constantly refers to, they find a way around them to win the games, just like great quarterbacks. Not to mention, it's not like, with the exception of Carolina, it's not like their schedule has been absolutely brutal this season either. when you take into account these losses. Now, they come out and they just flat out lay an egg against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Lincoln Financial Field. They completely lay an egg. And I don't care who was injured, who was banged up. Everybody's banged up. Buccaneers were missing a guard and their tight end. I mean, everybody's banged up here and there. All right, Tom Brady, last week against the Giants, he didn't have Julian Edelman. He didn't have Dion Lewis. Former Philadelphia Eagle, by the way, who's been having a pretty solid season for the New England Patriots. And Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, they still got it done. Moved to 9-0. Beat the New York Football Giants.
To me, those balls are perfect.
And, of course, the game's kicking off tonight against the Buffalo Bills with the New England Patriots, speaking of that. But anyhow, I mean, there's no excuse for this game. The Eagles, they didn't, the whole culture thing really comes into question now because they just didn't look into it, I guess, if that makes any sense. And I mean, I'm watching that one play with Nolan Carroll, kind of like running sort of like laterally with Doug Martin, like trying to figure all right, how do I bring him down? He's probably going to stiff arm me and stuff like that. I'm just like, man, the Buccaneers came to play. And the Philadelphia Eagles at home once again didn't. And it just blows my mind. Now, not to take anything away from Jameis Winston. Again, like I just said, he's coming along. He's having a good season. But the Eagles let a rookie quarterback tie a rookie record in this game for 5 touchdown passes. Doug Martin, 84-yard run was the longest in franchise history. They let Doug Martin run for 235 yards. 177 in the first half. I mean, it's just amazing. Four of Jameis Winston's touchdown passes in the first half, they were all to different receivers. That reminds me, when's the last time that the Philadelphia Eagles, we could say that with the Philadelphia Eagles, that 4 different wide receivers caught a touchdown pass? Not like, not to take anything away, but just like, when's the last time that happened? Oh yeah, that's right. We got Riley Cooper, Miles Austin out there. That's right. Yeah. See, this loss, I mean, it brings up all kinds of issues with this team, with this regime. Everything can be called into question here. Everything that Chip Kelly can be ripped about is fair game here. I mean, whether it's lack of a receiving core, I mean, Bradford, lack of an offensive line too, but Bradford not being there, I mean, it's a shame because Bradford, he looked like he was coming along a little bit the last few weeks, but he's injury prone. I mean, in the same game last week, the pec tear or whatever and the concussion, I mean, it's just like, boom, boom. I mean, that's the risk that I guess Chip Kelly took here with bringing Bradford here. He's injury prone. And, of course, his play has been questionable. I mean, if you ask me today whether or not the Eagles should re-sign Bradford, has he done it? No, of course not. And Sanchez is Sanchez. He's thrown at least one interception the past 6 straight games for the Philadelphia Eagles he's played. Of course, we don't need we go back to last week's one, but Sanchez is going to give you what he's going to give you. He's a 1 interception to 1 touchdown guy, quarterback. And I mean, the bottom line here is the Eagles got destroyed 45-17. There's no excuses. None. And this loss, to me, feels like the beginning of the end. The official, perhaps beginning of the end of the Chip Kelly regime here for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, what that means exactly, I don't know. For one thing, Jeffrey Lurie will sit up in his ivory tower or whatever, and I don't know, when the season's over, he gave him all his power, for one thing, which is backfiring, obviously. And look, as bad as the Eagles may finish this season, because let's face it, if the Eagles, they lose to Detroit on Thanksgiving, the Eagles get blown out last night, and now just a few days later they play the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving. Now the Lions suddenly, even though they're not really playing for anything at this point, they've suddenly put together a couple wins lately. It's a very possible loss for the Philadelphia Eagles at this point. They continue this downward spiral. If they lose on Thanksgiving to the Lions, essentially it's over. Stick a fork in this season. Because then they got to go play New England the next week, which is a loss. 2 weeks later, without question, loss to the Cardinals. In between those 2 games, they could very well lose to the Buffalo Bills. And then they finish with the 2 division games, but the Giants one could especially be a loss with this Philadelphia Eagles team at this point. So they lose on Thanksgiving, stick a fork in it. That's all I'll say. Season's over. Play the taps, trumpet. Everything. I just can't believe that I'm sitting here saying on November 23rd, before they play the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving, with 6 games left in the regular season, I can't believe I'm saying that this Philadelphia team this season, with this division, this season for the Eagles is on life support. And we still got 6 games left. But I just laid it out for you. They lose to Detroit, it's over. Because they're going to lose to New England. They'll be 4-8. Between their last 4 games, Buffalo, Arizona, and then, of course, Washington and the Giants. The point is, if they're bad enough at this point to lose the next 2, okay, either way, New England's lost. If they're bad enough to lose to Detroit on Thanksgiving, lose a 3rd straight game against teams that they had plenty of capability to beat, then they're just not good enough to go on a miraculous December rally, win enough to move to 8-8. That's the bottom line. They lose to Detroit on Thanksgiving. You're looking at 5 to 6 wins max, I think. 7-9 at that point would be a miracle. But again, and I don't care when Sam Bradford comes back. I don't care whether this guy or that guy comes back. I mean, the point is just across the board. At that point, we'll know that they're just not good. You know, it's one thing for a while, this Eagles team. They've been, they've been coined as a team, well, Chip Kelly and this Eagles team. Well, they can beat mediocre teams and bad teams, but they can't beat good playoff teams. Now it's like they can't beat mediocre teams. And bad teams like Miami last week, you don't know if they're going to beat bad teams. It's just this team has really regressed the last few weeks. Without question. I mean, it's an embarrassment. Fans, I applaud, I mean, for leaving the game early yesterday. I mean, leave. I mean, obviously, again, I mean, well, duh. I mean, they're getting beat that badly. You're not, you want to get out of there. You might as well pack it up, head home, try to avoid, bad traffic in the parking lot or whatever. But who wants to stick around and watch the rest of that game at that point? Just like the fans at home. Who really wants to just keep watching that crap on the field, on the TV? I mean, really. I mean, it's just an embarrassment of a game for the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, the defense, they had a big breakdown. But but once again, the offense, I mean, because let's look at it this way. I mean, Sanchez was not expected to go out there and light it up if Sam Bradford went down. But he was expected to at least, at least provide some decent enough quarterbacking, I guess, to not be a significant drop-off from what they have with Sam Bradford. At this point, this Eagles offense, their identity is that they don't have one, essentially. That's the Philadelphia Eagles' identity this year. Maybe some could say it's been their front seven at times, but that was not there this game, obviously. And you can't count on the Philadelphia Eagles offense at all. You can't count on one of the worst wide receiving cores in the NFL. That's the bottom line. Ertz gets a concussion. Of course, Ryan Matthews didn't play this week. I mean, again, just across the board. It's just very sad watching this Philadelphia Eagles team. I mean, last week, again, was painful enough to just watch a team that was awful on special teams shooting themselves in the foot time and time again. So many chances to step on the throats of the Dolphins, who basically showed up last week and they didn't even want to play, it seemed like. And the Eagles failed to win a game that they could have put away by accident. And then here against the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, I mean, I don't know, the Buccaneers are 5-5 now. But I mean, against Dallas last week, they didn't do anything against Dallas last week on offense. Nothing. Not until the very end of the game. I mean, that game was like a snooze fest. And that was still Dallas without Tony Romo, obviously, and they lose 10-6 to the Bucs last week. But this Eagles defense that has been solid throughout the year for the most part breaks down. And the Eagles just look totally lost for whatever reason. Unprepared. Just not into the game. And this Eagles offense, again, as Chip Kelly stands there with it on the sideline with, his 3 plays on his S8 card or whatever else, and might as well just be standing with a Post-it note as far as, his playbook goes.
Was that like a wise ass comment?
And, I mean, it's just like, what do you do with it? I mean, it's bad enough that it's like Chip Kelly as a play caller has regressed. The receiving core for this team has regressed. The offensive line has regressed. They had to get rid of Evan Mathis, of course. I mean, Harriman's, I can understand. He's, a little bit up there. But the point is, didn't really bring anybody in to replace the new holes in the offensive line. And that shows when a guy like, Jason Peters is banged up and not playing. And that shows on the receiving core as well. I mean, Deshaun Jackson and Macklin gone. One year and the next, they're both gone. And instead, I mean, Jordan Matthews in the slot, who at times shows flashes of being solid, but has been dropping passes left and right this season. And it's just not a game breaker of a receiver. You got... why Riley Cooper, Miles Austin are starting outside receivers on this team, I will never know. And Josh Huff, he doesn't do anything, really. I mean, that's... Aguilar, I mean, I guess you could still wait and see what he turns out to be, but he's not going to be a Mike Evans, not a Kelvin Benjamin, who, by the way, of course, the Panthers have been missing for the season, but yet they're 10-0. But anyhow, I mean, again, I brought it up earlier in the show. The Eagle, it's just constant malpractice. The Eagles in a draft, a wide receiver rich draft, where, okay, they just got rid of Deshaun Jackson. They could have, instead of in the first round, sitting there not knowing what to, other teams like Green Bay, they pass the Eagles and they get somebody that they really desire, like, Clinton Dix, and other teams moving up in the draft to get some. The Eagles had many chances in that draft to get a wide receiver that could make up maybe for the lack of Deshaun Jackson, and not to mention be an improvement over Riley Cooper. But no, they sat there and they took Marcus Smith, and everybody just, watching the Philadelphia Eagle fan, not just Philadelphia, everybody watching the draft. Probably just like, at their draft parties or whatever, like looking at each other like, huh?
Who is this?
All right, so a little later in the draft, they get in that draft, since Marcus Smith didn't He's not doing anything here. They get Jordan Matthews, who again, I mean, slot receiver, at least, a guy who they think apparently can only be a slot receiver, considering he's still playing in the slot, whereas Riley Cooper and Miles Austin and Josh Huff are outside guys. All right, Jordan Matthews, I mean, that's all right, I guess. Josh Huff, I mean, it's not doing anything. I mean, again, it's just constant taking steps back and everything. It's just sad. There's too many. I mean, provided Chip Kelly. I mean, everybody out there, including myself. I mean, look, if you ask me today, do I still want Chip Kelly in charge of this regime? No. At this point, I've seen enough. I mean, it's just the franchise has gone backwards in a preseason that looked so promising out of the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, to see it now just start to erode the way it's starting to erode is just mind-boggling. And it's extra sad too, because the Flyers, I mean, Sixers, obviously we can't really watch for the most part all this season. Unless, I mean, you want to see how Okafor is coming along fairly well in the league, and Nerlens Noel, and I guess as we just wait for, more capable NBA players than those two guys to find themselves on the 76ers roster. All right, so there's that, and the Flyers have just been stinking it up. And, I mean, of course, tonight is, another Flyers game, but a chance for, the Flyers with Rod Brindamore night tonight, and that ceremony, of course.
Brindy, how you doing, man?
But I mean, just there's nothing. There's nothing. Philly's rebuilding. Of course, baseball season just ended pretty much. I mean, it's just we have nothing now, essentially, with this Philadelphia Eagles team. And they lose to Detroit. It's the final nail in the coffin on the season. That's the bottom line. Final nail in the coffin.
I agree.
And essentially, I mean, again, barring some kind of huge turnaround for the Flyers, which I don't even see at this point, it's just there's nothing. The rest of the fall, the winter into the spring, I mean, it's just nothing. I mean, perhaps until, what may be an interesting off season for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, regular season wise, it's nothing we can probably possibly look forward to until next football season. I mean, that's the bottom line. And who knows where this Eagles team will even be next offseason. Who will be the quarterback? Who will the wide receivers be? Will the offensive line be better? Who on defense? I mean, it's just a complete mess right now. As far as I'm concerned, given Jeffrey Owner's the owner of the Eagles team, and that Jeffrey Lurie, I guess, thought it was okay to give Chip Kelly all of the, like, sole possession of picking personnel on this team, pretty much, and being the general manager, essentially. Even if the Eagles finish pretty bad, 6-10 or whatever, it's probably one of these things, given that Chip Kelly is on a 6-year contract. I could just very well see Jeffrey Lurie saying, oh, well, it needs more time to do this and that, and, for some of these players to gel together, and just, BS like that. But, given that Chip Kelly will still be the coach of this football team next year, unless something changes. Which, hey, at this point, if we want to reboot, I mean, go right ahead. But provided nothing changes, I mean, hopefully Chip Kelly's going to really recognize what changes he needs to make as an NFL football coach, in his thinking and his doing, and most certainly his coaching, with his little S8 play card that, geez, if you ask me, probably has 3 plays on it, at least from what we see out there in the field. I mean, unless he can do that, really, step back and take a good look at what he's, and just everything, how he handles the media, and how he just, which we'll get to something a little interesting in just a second here, but he's got, I mean, I'll give him this. I mean, he needs a quarterback, and because, again, at the end of the day, Bradford, that he, Foles, Sanchez, these guys, they're not really good enough. We'll put it that way. And Bradford, I mean, he's shown flashes of being an accurate passer and a good thrower, but he's not mobile, and he's not Tom Brady either. So, and that can be a bit of a red flag. And, of course, Bradford is injury prone. So, you need to do better at the quarterback position. Wasn't feasible enough to get Marcus Mariota in the offseason in the draft. So as far as a possible solution is bringing in Colin Kaepernick in the offseason, which I believe would be an improvement over Sam Bradford and just over what they've had in general. And I know, some people will say what they want about Kaepernick and how he got benched in San Francisco and everything. And look, the guy needs a change of scenery. I mean, we'll put it that way. He certainly needs some coaching, but he's got tools. I guess that makes sense. I mean, he's got the ability to open up that playbook for the Philadelphia Eagles, for maybe Chip Kelly. And again, if you bring in more capable wide receivers as well, you can open up that playbook more. Because I'm sure Miles Austin, Riley Cooper, just limit that playbook even further with their lack of speed and just, every other criticism that you want to throw their way. That's sort of like some of the only hope here at this point, and not to mention improving the offensive line to also improve the running game. I mean, again, it's bad enough for Sam Bradford to have to throw behind what has been a makeshift offensive line this season. Obviously, with Jason Peters' injury a few weeks ago, and whether or not he'll even play next season, remains up in the air. And so certainly, it would help to improve that, help the running game be more effective, and just across the board. If you can improve your offensive line, you want a better offensive line, common sense. But again, these are the changes, that have to be made, and I just, on defense too, you can, probably, it seems like they're tied to Byron Maxwell at this point. We'll just put it that way.
He wants your money!
And, they're going to be paying him a lot. So, looks like he's here, he's here to stay. And, Eric Rowe, Nolan Carroll, between those guys, I don't know. Certainly after a game like this, the Eagles defense just, it just has that kind of effect where it's like, well, geez, this defense was awful. And just obviously after this game, certainly just the overall impression right now is certainly at a big low. But at the end of the day, more, week after week, it's been problems with the offense. It's been problems with the play calling also. Some of it's, at least in my opinion, lack of common sense.
Was that like a wise-ass comment?
And, other than that, it's just like, what play, your playbook's a little more limited with an immobile quarterback and also, a quarterback who's not Tom Brady or, Peyton Manning when, well, I guess Peyton Manning, the Peyton Manning that we have known for, up until, I guess, maybe late last season, I guess, perhaps, if that makes sense.
Chicken parm, you taste so good.
Considering he's not had a good season, obviously, and did not finish last season strong either. But you get the point. So, again, the wide receiving core, need I say that about that again, about how, without reliable Jeremy Maclin, without a guy like Deshaun Jackson out there that can stretch the field, it's really starting to, play a factor in the Eagles' passing game just being very limited this season. It's one thing to, cut one of them, cut them or let them walk, let them not pay him as much as another team's going to pay him. It's one thing to do that and then bring in replacements that are up to par or even better. but at least up to par. But it's another thing to do those things, and then you got Riley Cooper still here, who's basically stealing money at this point with his lack of production this season. And you got Miles Austin, who at this point might as well just retire. Nelson Aguilar's been banged up and hasn't really been a big factor yet. Whether he will be or not remains to be seen. And Jordan Matthews, again, Josh Huff, I mean, more so Josh Huff, I mean, just not an impact on this team. So, I mean, that's pretty much that in a nutshell. The Eagles can't make these improvements. Chip can't make these improvements in the off season. If he can't evolve out of his ways that are really starting to pigeonhole him in as far as his place in the NFL goes, as far as his, just you want to say growth in the NFL, but it's like he's not growing. It's like he's starting not to really be up to speed here with the NFL. And that's the bottom line. Now, this is kind of, I kind of want to call this like an MVP of the week situation. Again, normally we'll do, at least earlier in the season. I mean, listen to some Chip Kelly press conference. At this point, though, with an effort like this, a game, at this point, does it really matter what Chip Kelly even says, other than you just want to hear what he said, like, just to, I guess, be reminded of how silly these press conferences are with Chip Kelly are. I mean, and just how, his answers are just, there's just nothing to them. And how you can just shoot holes in so many things he says. It's just like, what's the point? And how is he gonna enlighten us on anything of what the Eagles are doing as they continue to drop the ball this season? I mean, it's just like a waste of time at this point. Well, since the Eagles were getting blown out of the water here at Lincoln Financial Field in a game that they were expected to bounce back and win after a huge disappointing game last week at home against the Dolphins, Chip Kelly was on with Angelo Cataldi, as he normally is, WIP here in Philadelphia Sports Radio. And I got to hand it to Cataldi with how he dealt with Chip Kelly in today's phone call interview with Cataldi and Chip Kelly. And for those who didn't hear this, I mean, I have the text of what, because this was an embarrassing home loss. So obviously, when you get beat like this in a situation where you're expected to put some wins together after that Dallas game, you get beat like this by a mediocre team. Cataldi is going to try to, what does Chip expect? Is it like a tea party? But so, Cataldi says you get emotionally angry at one point about midway in the interview, do you get emotionally angry after a game like yesterday? Cataldi asked Kelly. Do you transmit that anger to your players? But now, before we even get to Chip Kelly's answer or response to that, so I don't really want to call it an answer. I mean, listen. I mean, as far as angry coaches, the angry coach theory and this and that, like, it's not like a guy has to be yelling, every game at players and being a hype guy and everything like that. Because again, you look at a team like New England, like a guy like Bill Belichick, and he hasn't had to be that kind of rowdy guy, and for the most, but he'll say, you gotta think, just watching some things from NFL films and whatnot, Bill Belichick, might get a little, might get emotionally angry in a situation when you're getting beat like that. But, 45-17, or whatever the score was at various points in the game, point is the Eagles were getting but I guess then again, when does New England ever get beat like that these days? Or the last 15 years and whatnot. So, but the point is, it's one thing being that guy on the sidelines who's just yelling all the time, but it's another thing to get emotionally angry when, your team's not playing the way you feel it should be playing. You feel like guys aren't all there or whatever, emotionally in the game, mentally, not fire, just coming out flat against a team that at home that they're not supposed to come out flat against, at a situation in the season where it's pivotal you win this game that's winnable. Do you get emotionally angry after a game yesterday? Do you transmit that anger to your players? In a situation like that, there's got to be some kind of anger that you got to let out amongst your play. Really? Am I saying anything that's left field like here? I don't think I am. But apparently Chip Kelly had something else to say. This was Chip Kelly's response to that question, essentially. Well, as my internet kind of fails here, I don't think you have to yell at grown men, Kelly responded. I think every single play in that locker room is as disappointed, or more disappointed, than anybody in this city in terms of how we played and what the outcome of this game was. So for someone to have to yell at them or raise their voice, they're not 2-year-olds. They're grown men. They know exactly what's going on. That's Harry High School stuff. That doesn't flow and that doesn't work, and that's not what people talk about. If that's what people want, if people want a screamer and yeller, then let's hire you, because you're really good at it. You as in Cataldi on the line. Obviously conducting the interview. And Cataldi in return, I guess before I guess going on with his follow-up to that, Cataldi had to say, I'm not sure if I would be worse than 4-6. So there you go, right there. Yeah, no, seriously, that was the perfect follow-up there. Because, again, who expected this team to be 4-6 at this point? I didn't have Super Bowl. Some people have Super Bowl expectations or NFC Championship expectations, and I figured, all right, one playoff win is feasible, and winning this division, obviously, which again continues to just sit there on a silver platter. It pretty much has throughout the season thus far, and now it's like it's now it's like it's getting cold or whatever's sitting there on the silver platter.
It was like sweet and sour pork, right?
Yeah, whatever. But here they are at 4-6, and again, essentially the season is on life support because they lose to the Lions. They're 4-7. They'll lose to the Patriots. I mean, if Tampa Bay beat the Eagles this badly at Lincoln Financial, what are the Eagles going to do when they have to go up to play New England? And and then, of course, the Cardinals will probably come here and beat the Eagles. So, yeah, pretty much season over. They lose. In a division that could be won with an 8-8 record. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Or mind-blowing, whatever you want to prefer there. So, yeah, I mean, Cataldi basically said, first of all, I mean, Chip Kelly clearly was rattled here. His answer, again, I mean, obviously before I even went into the Chip Kelly response, I laid out what I thought, and see, Chip Kelly turned it into a yelling at grown men thing, and it's like, not that, it's like, but show some like, the fans care apparently more than you do. Like, it's mind-boggling that Chip Kelly turned it into this, I don't think you have to yell at grown men thing. They know exactly what's going on and everything. Yeah, but again, like, it's just no fire at all. There's no, you bring up this whole culture thing, and there's no leader on this team. I mean, no identity, no leader. I mean, at least back in the day, Brian Dawkins was that defense, that was like a leader. Jeremiah Trotter as well, you could say, was a good leader in a sense on defense. There's nobody really on this Eagles team, and of course, I mean, quarterback, I mean, Donovan McNabb, I get, I mean, he was a franchise quarterback. I mean, whether you want to look at him as a leader like, Brian Dawkins, I don't, not too sure about that.
Number 5 will always love you.
But the point I'm making here is the Eagles, they don't have that guy. I mean, Tom Brady, when guys on offense, they're not doing things that he believes they should. Tom Brady points that out. He picks him at Rodgers, slamming down his iPad the other week after losing. I mean, this Eagles team, it's just like, there's none of that. They don't care as much, it seems. And that stems from Chip Kelly. And the lack of any real leader on this team. I mean, you could say Chip Kelly's the leader, I guess, essentially, since there's no players that are really leaders. And it goes to Chip Kelly. And I'm looking at this game, the guys that just don't look like they're really playing for each other. Like, and it goes to Chip Kelly. And Chip Kelly turns this question. I don't think if you yell at grown men thing, they're not 2-year-olds. They know exactly what's going on. Well, do they know that many people on this team going 11-5, 12-4 this season, winning this division, and then winning a playoff game perhaps, and starting to build towards a Super Bowl championship contending team? They know that's going on, right? And do they know that at this point it's like they're drastically underachieving? I don't know. Chip Kelly says that doesn't flow and that doesn't work. And that's not what people talk about. If that's what people... So, all right. Well, guess what? This team, there's a lot... Okay, maybe that doesn't flow and doesn't work. I guess we could probably say that about so many things with this team because you're 4-6. And your season is on life support. I mean, it's just gotten awful. It really has. And again, they lose to Detroit on Thanksgiving. It's over. The season is over. And quite frankly, I don't know what there will really be to do here as far as talking about talking here on the Tyler Werner show about Eagles games. Because, I mean, because then it's just going to be like, all right, well, next week they're going to go into New England, they're going to get their doors blown off. And then, maybe Buffalo, there's a shot at winning, at that point, and then it's like, so even if they do win, it's like, all right, well, I mean, they're, okay, they still got to beat the Cardinals, and if they don't, the season's over anyway. So it's like what they lose this week, it's pretty much done. We'll put it that way. Stick a fork in the season. I guess try to watch the Flyers. Maybe hope that they turn things around. I don't know. That's basically what's at stake here. Basically what's at stake. But yeah, Chip Kelly, somehow they're 4-6. And again, with a lot of what we've seen this season out of Chip Kelly especially, Cataldi was spot on in saying, I'm not sure I'd be worse than 4-6. I mean, okay, for a second, I'll put aside the lack of receiving core, which, again, Chip Kelly is responsible for. Put aside, not having the franchise quarterback, essentially, that can do the read option and do more things in this league and open up the playbook. All right, the offensive line is a little shaky. All right, I got it. Put some of those things aside, but just leave it to play calling, for instance. I mean, sometimes I'm just watching some of these games, and I know some people out there might choose this next part as like a reason to hate or something like that. But
Go ahead, hater.
But sometimes I just think of how I play call in Madden, for instance. Not trying to compare that to anything with the NFL, but just situations you get in. And again, on 3rd and 10s, when I'm playing in Madden, and it's 3rd down and 10, or something along those, I don't ever remember ever calling a smoke screen play, to anybody. I don't care if I don't care if it's because Josh Huff, obviously is a mediocre receiver at best. I don't even know if he's mediocre.
Mediocre?
I guess if we're gonna bring Richard Sherman terminology into play here, but I mean, I don't care if it's to, if I'm because I play as the Eagles because I believe in, when I play superstar mode, I believe in, since my guy's a mobile quarterback, a guy that has mobile ability and stuff like that, which the Eagles could so desperately use. It's just like I've never thrown a smoke screen, and it's things like these where when they get called in an actual NFL game, and it's like a lack of common sense. I mean, because in Madden, unless you have some kind of glitch or cheat on, which even then, it's still like, it's just a lack of common sense, whether it's Madden or whether I'm watching it get called in a big Philadelphia Eagles game. But nevertheless, Chip Kelly calls that stuff, and it doesn't work when it gets called. And time again, pass plays with receivers that just don't get good enough separation. Again, on third down, and passes don't get thrown beyond the first down line, and it's just fundamental play calling, things like that too. That it just makes me wonder sometimes, like, this guy that was supposed to be an offensive genius, it's like, lack of common sense, and it's like, well, geez, I feel like anybody with some general football knowledge could, step in there and play call better than Chip Kelly does. It's just, again, it's just mind-boggling. And that was a good response by Cataldi. I'm not sure I'd be worse than 4-6. And then, like, Chip Kelly goes on to, Cataldi, goes on to say, ask, that's the point, you're 4-6 and stuff like that. And Chip Kelly says, we've been outplayed in 6 football games and outcoached in 6 football games. It's like, well, why? Because you were not expected to. I mean, it's just the dumbest responses. It's just all water under the bridge responses. We've been outplayed in 6 games, and we've been outcoaching. It's like, well, there's more to it than that. Because nobody expected you to be 4-6 at this point. That's the bottom line. I don't know. I forget, going through the schedule. At this point I probably had the Eagles maybe having 2 or 3 losses. Being 7-3, possibly 8-2. Maybe 7-3, I forget, but it's like, well, they're 4-6. Not to mention their division is not good. The Cowboys, they haven't had Tony Romo, and okay, they beat them the second time, which they were expected to do. They barely beat them. But again, it's like, okay, the Giants are only 500. The Redskins, they're 4-6 now, but they got a tough schedule ahead. They'll probably finish 6-10. So this division, again, it's been gift wrapped, at least for the Philadelphia Eagles team that we expected to come in this season and win 11 games and playoff game or whatever expectations you had. And yet they're just another brick in the wall of mediocre teams in the NFL. Mediocre to even bad teams, because if they lose to Detroit this week and then inevitably go on to lose to New England, they're 4-8, which in my book goes down as a bad team.
That's exactly right.
Essentially, that's what this Eagles team is essentially on the verge of being. Will they? Well, I guess we'll find out on Thanksgiving. We will find out whether or not this Eagles team is officially a bad team. Not just mediocre or average or whatever, but bad. B-A-D, capital B-A-D. That's, that pretty much sticks a fork in it. And you can pretty much stick a fork if they in this season if they lose to the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving, before, of course, you go on to stick a fork in your Thanksgiving turkey and whatever else,
It was like sweet and sour pork, right?
But yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, and maybe the Eagles lose, maybe indulge in some, whoever out there is gonna indulge in heavy dosages of alcohol after that. I don't know, but drink responsibly, of course. But no, I mean, you can pretty much stick a fork in it on Thanksgiving of all days if the Eagles lose to the Detroit Lions. I have a bad feeling. I really do. Facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show is the way to get in. That finally puts a wrap on this edition of the Tyler Werner Show.
You know what? Enough! Enough!
Yeah, I mean, again, this is, it's really about the big picture. Because this game that they pretty much weren't really in from the get. I mean, yeah, they got up early, 7, but then it was just, after that, I mean, it was just over. And the rest of the way, the Eagles, they just weren't in it. And, yeah, the Eagles have an uphill battle at this point in a division that at this point, maybe if they were playing up to expectation, maybe they'd have a decent lead on the division, but they don't. They're 4-6, and their season is on the line this week on Thursday afternoon on Thanksgiving Day football. Stay tuned for the Around the NFL edition of the Tyler Werner Show video next, before we move into that Thanksgiving football. And we can obviously look at other teams and how they're playing much better football than the Philadelphia Eagles this season. Thanks for tuning in as always, if you're still tuned in, which would be awesome. And just stay tuned for the next edition of the Tyler Werner Show right here on the Facebook page and YouTube channel.
The champion of game day catering is the official meatball of the Tyler Werner Show, Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs.
We prepare our balls over time, and that's the essence of the preparation.
On top of that, another trademark of Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs is Brady's signature rubbing process.
When I pick balls out, to me, they're perfect. I don't want anyone touching the balls after that. I don't want anyone rubbing them. To me, those balls are perfect. What is a concern is the texture of the balls, and again, that's the point that Tom hit on hard.
The champion of all game day catering dishes is Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs, the official meatball of the Tyler Werner Show.
Okay, Rocco, pretend I'm the girl that you want to ask out on a date.
How about maybe you and I, maybe we go out together, get something to eat, I don't know, maybe laugh a little bit, who knows, you know? I don't know, would you like to maybe, you and me go out together? What do you think? Would you like to?
You need to make more eye contact and you sound way too nervous.
You want to hear me say it? You want to break me down? All right, I'm afraid. For the first time in my life, I'm afraid.
Having a tough time asking out ladies? You need to see Clubber Lang for a lesson.
Hey, woman. Hey, woman. I bet you stay up late every night dreaming you had a real man, don't you? I tell you what, bring your pretty little self over to my apartment tonight, and I'll show you a real man.
Build confidence with the ladies like never before with Clubber Lang's dating services. The most highly recommended in all of the Delaware Valley.
I am ranked number one. That means I'm the best.
We'll have some skirt steak, some brisket, little piece of that New York steak, a couple of them steak fingers, and a burger.
You've known for a long time that you were going to have to get real about fat or stay real fat. It didn't get that way by accident or by some outsider's doing.
Put some macaroni and cheese on there, too. Is there any chicken fried steak left?
Your weight just keeps creeping up or maybe even shooting sky high.
3 slices of pecan pie and 2 cups of coffee.
You have a decision to make. You know it, and so do I.
Yes, all right.
You need prescription diet pills or other diet aids to lose weight.